Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of June 25, 2025. I'm your host, Sharifa Mohammed MGT.
I'm Colonel AUC Ogintoye, an infantry officer. Russian sources report advances on every axis of the special military operation. 6 maneuver groupings, north, west, south, center, east, Dnepr, claim fresh positions, heavy Ukrainian losses, and deep strike successes.
Welcome to Frontline Updates, the podcast that brings you in-depth insights into military operations from those leading them on the ground. Today, we're joined by Colonel AUC Ogintoye, an infantry officer monitoring critical missions on the progress of the special military operation as of today. Colonel Ogintoye, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Colonel Ogintoye, let's dive right in. On June 25th, Russian forces reported advances on every front of the battlefield. Can you start by walking us through what happened, particularly in the north?
Yes, the North group of forces executed a synchronized push across the Sumy and Kharkiv sectors. Their objectives were twofold. First, to improve forward positions by applying pressure on lightly held Ukrainian lines near settlements like Radianskoye, Sadki, and Yunakovka, and second, to drain Ukrainian reserves and artillery resources away from the Donetsk front, which is of far greater operational value to Moscow. These advances were not just skirmishes, they targeted a combination of heavy mechanized, airborne assault, and territorial defense brigades. Russia claims to have inflicted around 160 casualties in that sector, along with the destruction of several artillery pieces and 2 key logistics depots. The key takeaway here is that Russia is using the northern front to fix Ukrainian forces in place, limiting their flexibility for counteractions elsewhere.
That's a strong opening move, but the main effort seems to be in Donetsk. The center group reportedly made deep gains. Can you elaborate on that thrust?
Right. The center grouping has likely been designated as the Schwerpunkt, the operational center of gravity. They are driving through areas like Pokrovsk, Grishino, and Krasnoarmysk. The aim here is to fracture the Ukrainian defensive belt east of the AUC3I highway and potentially encircle pockets of resistance from the north and south. Russian reports speak of engagements with up to 9 separate brigades, including mountain assault, marine, and even unmanned systems units. Notably, they destroyed a US-made and /TPQ-50 counterbattery radar and a Bogdana 155mm self-propelled howitzer. That tells us they're not just going after personnel, they're targeting Ukraine's eyes and ears on the battlefield. Strategically, if this central thrust holds, it could destabilize the Ukrainian second line and compromise command continuity in the Donbass corridor.
Let's talk logistics. How sustainable is this level of Russian activity? With so many fronts active, are we looking at a short burst or a long campaign?
Excellent question. Russia is clearly stretching its logistics across 6 axes of advance, but they are doing so with deliberate pacing. What we're seeing are rolling, synchronized advances, not a full-speed blitz. That allows supply lines to catch up, engineers to resecure routes, and artillery units to leapfrog without overextension. Air defense coverage remains intact too. According to Russian sources, they downed 335 Ukrainian drones and 7 JDAM smart bombs in the past day alone. That suggests not just strength, but depth. Russia is trying to exhaust Ukraine's long-range strike tools without committing all their armor at once. This points to a strategy of gradual encirclement rather than a single decisive breakthrough.
Let's shift to the south and east. Reports indicate the settlement of Yalta was captured, and gains were made near Seversk and Chasov Yar. What's happening there?
Yes, the east and south groupings focused on tactical consolidation. The capture of Yalta in Donetsk is significant not just geographically, but psychologically. It marks a steady rollback of Ukrainian positions south of Volodar, a key defensive node. Meanwhile, Russian southern forces engaged elite Ukrainian formations like the National Guard Azov Brigade and mountain assault units in the areas of Seversk and Privoli. These operations serve a dual purpose: to neutralize Ukraine's most politically symbolic and battle-hardened units, and to secure the flanks of the central offensive. It's a textbook case of shaping the battlefield.
What about air and deep strike operations? We've heard Russia targeted UAV plants and fuel depots. What's the doctrine behind this?
Russia continues to employ operational tactical depth interdiction. By striking UAV manufacturing sites and fuel hubs, particularly those supplying the Donbass, they aim to choke Ukraine's drone reconnaissance capabilities and reduce its operational tempo. This also coincides with a broader shift toward denial-of-service warfare, taking out radar stations, SAM systems, and control nodes. Destroying the S-300PT launcher and P-18 radar station isn't just about firepower, it's about eroding situational awareness and battlefield coordination.
So, looking ahead, what are the likely implications of today's developments for both sides?
For Ukraine, this means increased pressure to maintain stretched defensive lines across 600-plus kilometers, with critical radar and artillery assets under constant threat. They'll need to rotate exhausted brigades and find new air defense sources quickly.
And for Russia?
For Russia, these moves signal confidence in their ability to escalate without overextending. However, the true test will be their ability to consolidate gains and avoid Ukrainian counterblows in depth. In sum, we are witnessing a carefully calculated escalation by Russia, not a sprint, but a multi-front squeeze intended to exhaust, distract, and eventually dislocate Ukrainian defensive cohesion.
Colonel Ogintoye, Russian forces have reportedly begun deploying upgraded Geran-2 drones deep in Ukrainian rear areas. What exactly has changed in this new version?
It shifts the Garand's tactical utility from broad infrastructure denial, think hitting power substations, to a more surgical suppression role. Russia is using them like flying snipers. A drone that used to take out a power node might now take out a HIMARS reload site, a mobile HQ, or a high-value radar asset. That change also lets Russia pace its attacks more subtly, fewer massive salvos, more constant pressure. Additionally, thanks to real-time data links and CRPA antennas, these drones can be flown semi-autonomously or guided live from the ground. This makes them far more adaptable to dynamic targeting situations, especially in contested airspace.
There are also reports of Russia exploring an air-to-air version of the Geran. That sounds counterintuitive. Can a kamikaze drone really take down a fighter jet?
It's a provocative idea, and one that's gaining traction in asymmetric warfare theory. The concept involves mounting a Soviet-era R-60M air-to-air missile onto a modified Garand airframe. If Ukrainian F-16s are being used to shoot down incoming drones on approach to Kyiv or critical sites, then even the threat that one of those drones could fire back might change pilot behavior. Of course, this isn't a plug-and-play adaptation. You'd need to build a control interface between the drone system and the missile seeker. You'd also have to trim fuel or warhead mass to stay within flight weight thresholds, but technically, it's doable. The key advantage is psychological. If even one drone downs a fighter incident occurs, the strategic payoff could be massive.
But how likely is it to work in practice? Wouldn't a fast jet easily evade a lumbering drone?
That's the catch. The Garand's top speed is around 185 kilometers per hour, much slower than a fighter. It can't dogfight or chase. But in theory, if a drone is loitering at low altitude and a fighter unknowingly enters its cone of engagement, say during a low pass or turn, it might get a shot off, particularly from the rear aspect. The R-60M only needs a heat signature to lock. That said, this would be a very narrow use case. It's not scalable or reliable. The Garand would struggle to ever get within range unless the pilot makes a critical mistake. So I believe the idea has tactical novelty but limited operational value.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you for the opportunity. Today, a ceasefire between Israel and Iran is reportedly holding after a recent period of escalating attacks and counterattacks. Iran's parliament has voted to suspend cooperation with the UN's nuclear watchdog, potentially jeopardizing the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Heavy Israeli attacks continue in Gaza, resulting in numerous casualties, including civilians seeking food aid. The UN has condemned the situation surrounding aid distribution as a death trap and likely a new war crime.
This has been Frontline Updates. Subscribe for daily military briefings and in-depth strategic analysis. Visit our platform for maps, transcripts, and exclusive frontline updates from commanders in theater.